Have you ever wondered what goes on in the mind of a serial killer? In today's video, we're going to explore the stories of 5 killers so terrifying that they continue to leave everyone perplexed. They are considered extremely dangerous. Get ready to learn shocking and unbelievable details about their lives and crimes. Each of these individuals has left a chilling mark on criminal history. We'll start with the River City Ripper, who left an entire city in panic without ever being caught. We'll unravel the mystery of the Alphabet Killer, whose victims had something terrifyingly in common. The Doodler, a serial killer who drew his victims before killing them, remains an enigma to this day. Robert Hansen, who hunted his victims in the Alaskan wilderness, and finally, Jeffrey Dahmer, whose name is synonymous with horror due to his macabre crimes. Now, let's dive into this dark universe and understand what makes these killers so notorious. The River City Ripper is a figure shrouded in mystery and terror. Between 2020 and 2021, he terrorized the city with seemingly random attacks. His victims varied in age and profile, making the task of capturing him even more challenging for authorities. One of the most notorious cases was the stabbing of Deborah Walker, a young woman whose life was brutally and senselessly cut short. The police tried everything to capture the Ripper, but he always seemed to be one step ahead. The streets of River City, once full of life, became dark and deserted after nightfall. Fear gripped the residents, who had no idea where or when he would strike next. This sense of vulnerability and helplessness left an indelible mark on the community. Despite technological advancements and relentless efforts by the authorities, the River City Ripper was never caught. He became a ghost, a constant reminder that justice doesn't always prevail. And so, we leave the shadow of the Ripper to delve into another enigmatic case, where logic and reason seem to have no place. The Alphabet Killer is one of the most disturbing and puzzling cases in criminal history. He earned his nickname due to the macabre pattern of choosing his victims, young girls whose names and death locations started with the same letters. This detail not only made his crimes more sinister, but also left an unmistakable signature. Authorities found themselves facing a dark puzzle, trying to decipher the motives and identity behind these heinous acts. The investigations were intense and meticulous, but the Alphabet Killer always seemed to slip through the cracks of the law. Every lead found led to a dead end, frustrating the detectives' efforts and heightening the fear among residents. The community lived in constant fear, knowing that the next attack could happen at any time and any place, as long as it followed the killer's terrible pattern. The Alphabet Killer's case remains unsolved to this day, leaving a sense of unease and mystery. It serves as a grim reminder that some criminals manage to hide in the shadows, evading justice. And now, as we leave this unsolved mystery behind, we turn to a case of cruelty from another killer whose methods were as artistic as they were deadly. The Doodler is one of the most intriguing and unsolved cases of the 1970s. This serial killer operated in San Francisco between 1974 and 1975, drawing caricatures of his victims before killing them. His unique method of operation and the way he selected his victims left the police baffled. Despite several investigations and a few suspects, the Doodler was never captured, becoming a lingering shadow in the city's criminal history. The Doodler's victims were primarily gay men, and their bodies were found in various locations, always showing signs of extreme violence. The Doodler's modus operandi, which included sketching his victims before attacking them, added a layer of mystery and cruelty to his crimes. The caricatures, which should have been harmless and even entertaining, became sinister premonitions of death. The gay community in San Francisco lived through a period of fear and tension, knowing that a cunning and relentless killer was on the loose. The authorities' failure to capture the Doodler not only frustrated the police, but also created a sense of helplessness among the residents. Each new victim reinforced the idea that the Doodler was always one step ahead. Even as decades have passed, the Doodler case continues to intrigue criminologists and amateurs alike, reminding us that some mysteries remain unsolved. And so, we leave the artistic mystery of the Doodler to turn our attention to another relentless predator, Robert Hansen, whose method of operation was as cold as the Alaskan wilderness where he committed his crimes. Robert Hansen, known as the Butcher Baker, was a serial killer who operated in the cold and isolated state of Alaska. Between 1971 and 1983, Hansen kidnapped, raped, and murdered at least 17 women, hunting them like animals in the remote forests around Anchorage. His brutal and calculated method of operation made him a feared and repugnant figure. He would lure his victims, often prostitutes and exotic dancers, with promises of money and work before releasing them into the wilderness and hunting them with a rifle. Hansen was an apparently ordinary man, married with 2 children and the owner of a bakery in Anchorage. This facade of normality allowed him to avoid suspicion for many years. He owned an isolated cabin where he took his victims before setting them loose in the forest. The idea of being hunted like an animal is an unimaginable nightmare, and Hansen used this to satisfy his sadistic desires. The police struggled to connect the disappearances due to the marginalized nature of the victims. Hansen's downfall began when one of his victims managed to escape and report the crime. In 1983, the police finally gathered enough evidence to arrest him. Hansen confessed to the murders and was sentenced to 461 years in prison without the possibility of parole. He died in prison in 2014. The story of Robert Hansen is a grim reminder that the worst monsters can hide in plain sight. And now, as we leave the cold and shadows of Alaska, we turn our focus to the disturbing tale of Jeffrey Dahmer, whose crimes shocked the world. Jeffrey Dahmer, known as the Milwaukee Cannibal, is one of the most infamous and disturbing serial killers in modern history. Between 1978 and 1991, Dahmer killed 17 men and boys, committing acts of necrophilia and cannibalism with their bodies. His ability to lure victims, often from gay bars, and his method of dismembering the bodies and keeping parts as trophies, created a wave of horror and public fascination. The coldness and meticulousness of his crimes shocked not only the city of Milwaukee but the entire world. Dahmer led a double life. During the day, he worked and maintained a facade of normality, while at night, his darkest impulses manifested. He drugged his victims before killing them, which showed a terrifying level of premeditation. The discovery of his apartment in 1991 revealed a nightmare scenario. Body parts preserved in various states of decomposition, photographs of the victims in macabre poses, and a human head in the freezer. This discovery terrified the nation and raised questions about the nature of evil and the human mind. Dahmer's capture was almost accidental. One of his victims managed to escape and alert the police, leading to his arrest. During the trial, Dahmer pled guilty but claimed insanity. He was sentenced to 15 life terms in prison. In 1994, Dahmer was killed by a fellow inmate in prison. Although his life ended, the legacy of his crimes remains a disturbing reminder of human capacity for evil. And so, we conclude our dive into the minds of the most terrifying serial killers in history. Now that you've learned about some of the most notorious and disturbing killers in history, it's clear just how complex and dark the human mind can be. Each of these criminals left an indelible mark, not only on the lives they destroyed but also on society as a whole. This leads us to reflect on the importance of justice, security, and constant vigilance in our communities. But what about you? Have you ever wondered how we can better protect ourselves and help prevent such horrors? Are we truly prepared to identify and deal with signs of violent behavior before it's too late? Think about it and share your thoughts in the comments. We want to hear your opinions and discuss ways to make our world a safer place. If you found this video interesting and want to keep exploring fascinating and important topics like this one, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications. That way, you won't miss any of our future content. Join us on this journey of knowledge and prevention. See you in the next video.